Hi, everybody. Welcome to Quarantine Parenting. Thanks for being here today. My name is Dr. Courtney Pegram, and I'm excited to introduce an incredible person. She is amazing. Crystal Clair is the founder of CFC Therapy, and she is an incredible therapist and has some great strategies for us parents because during quarantine parenting, I think we've really learned a different side of ourselves, and we need more resources and strategies as we continue going through homeschool and working remotely. Without further ado, I want to introduce Crystal and let her talk about who she is and her practice. Crystal?
Hi, I'm Crystal Clair. I'm the owner of CFC Therapy Group. We're located in Lincoln Park at Clybourne and Marcy. We have been in business for about 10 years and we call ourselves relationship experts. Everybody at our center specializes in working with couples, anxiety, depression, OCD, substance abuse, and then any way that involves your relationships, whether familial or otherwise. And that is where we're at. And there's 12 of us total, and we're open 7 days a week, and we're all on Zoom right now.
Oh, great. Sounds like I think it's perfect for us because I think we all need a little therapy, right? So I brought you on because with your expertise, I want to know as parents what we can do with our own anxiety right now as we know we're in quarantine and we're about to move into phase 1 and phase 2 of reintegration. And I feel like a lot of stuff is going to start to come up. What are some suggestions or strategies you have?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that I'm hearing a lot of from my clients. I think that the first thing is we have to be aware of our own anxiety and we have to see where that lands. So if we are noticing that we are getting anxious of even leaving the house, then we need to leave the house. We need to do everything safe. We need a calculated risk behind it, and we need to make sure we're doing what we need to protect ourselves. But the more that we just keep from doing those things, it's going to be harder to do them eventually, right? So one of the tactics that I like to use is like if I'm in Target and I start to feel that anxious feeling, whether that's like a flood of heat or that feels like nausea or just feels like I want to run, I like have my mask on and I'm like taking another lap around. It's the idea of if you're in a car accident, the first thing they tell you to do is get back driving. The longer you take from car accident to driving, the more fear has a chance to set in. And we know that anxiety loves question marks, right? It just absolutely, those are like the way they magnetize to each other. So we have to realize that with all these question marks we have of like, what stage are we in? What are we ever going to do? Will I go back to work? How will I go back to work? What's going to happen next? We have to then ground ourselves in what's true. So if we focus on just our truths, right? And I like to try to name 5 of them because I feel like it gets you to the point where you really get rid of the shoulda, woulda, couldas, and what ifs is what I call them, is that you just focus on what the truths are. That doesn't mean the truths have to be like awesome and, you know, super positive and full of rainbows, right? The truths can be, this really sucks. The truth can be, you know, like, I don't know if I'll ever go out of the house without a mask again. You know, the truth is whatever. But if we focus on that, I think we can get a hold of our own anxieties. Then we can use that same technique with our kids and have them name the 5 truths of their scenario. For example, my son's having a birthday next week and he had all kinds of questions, and we just focused on what we could tell him that the truth is of his birthday. You know, like, truth is daddy's taking the day off of work. Truth is we will still make you a cake. Truth is, and you get the picture. So I think that could be one tool that might help.
Oh, I think I want to use that. The 5 truth is really powerful because I love how you can relate it to us as parents, but also you switch it over to the kids so they can have a better understanding of what it means to verbalize how we're feeling. When it comes to like being at home and quarantine and like verbalizing our feelings, what are some strategies we can use in our household to help us be able to talk about it, but not get stuck in it all day?
Yeah, that's another very tricky situation, right? Because you start to talk about it and then you just end up passing time, and 2 hours later you're still talking about it. And so like that's just a lot to absorb and a lot to handle. So what I have done with a lot of anxiety well before COVID is I have created like an anxiety worry time of day. So the concept behind this is you pick a time of day that you can just really sit down and think about what was making you anxious that day. So if you're, walking and down the street and all of a sudden you have a thought bubble that pops up and says, hey, like I'm worried about XYZ, you say, you know what? I'm not going to let you nag at me all day. I'm going to think about you at 5 o'clock. Right. And at 5 o'clock, I will sit down and then I will invite any of the worry that I'm having for that day to come to me. At that point, I'll give it the space that it needs. And then knowing that I'll have an activity afterwards. So I think this is the key piece to this, is that you sit with this for 15, 20 minutes. I would say if you're doing it with your family, 5 minutes per member. And then after you're done expressing your feelings and anxieties, you have something to look forward to. You either take a family walk, or you're going to start a new puzzle, or you're going to, eat dinner, anything that's just not continuing to sit there. And if you feel like everybody's a little long-winded and it does start to take like an hour, hour and a half, and then there's tears and there's just like all kinds of stuff happening, and you're like, this is not working and Crystal's advice sucks, then what you would do is you would like set an egg timer and keep everybody to this. And then here's what I want you to really focus on, is telling everybody in your family and yourself, your feelings are valid. And that just because you express them, let them go and feel better, doesn't mean they didn't exist. So you can have a hard moment and a hard day, and you can still then find some levity toward the end. And it doesn't have to, start one way or end another. There's no real expectations, but you're allowing resiliency to be an option, and you're allowing joy to be an option.
I think, like, as you said that, I could really recognize myself doing that activity, because it sounds like for the success of the activity, for it to work, it's really being specific on the time of day, setting a timer so that this doesn't go on too long. So I like the idea of structure, of like this popping into my head, but let me save it for like worry time. And like the way I could visualize, it's so easy to do in our household. So I think that as a parent, that's super important. And I like you reemphasize, like it's a way to teach resilience. And having that planned activity, it creates that transition. So it's okay to feel like this. My feelings are valid. And then I can also have joy in the next segment of my day. So I think I love that. I got to try that. So next, as we move on, so I'm looking through my notes, and so teachers and some of the parents have been reaching out with me, and with COVID, some of my middle school kids are going through some really bad breakups. Do you have any recommendations of how to address that? Because that increases anxiety and depression. So what are your thoughts?
This is tough because we have all the media to continue a relationship, kind of, but then it's just still not the same, and we are seeing more and more breakups. We're finding that in our practice, that we just see a lot of it. I think the number one thing is when us as parents are overwhelmed with everything that's going on. Maybe you've lost a job and now there's the virus, and maybe somebody has it, and then you have something else, and then your son or daughter or child says like, oh, I broke up with Johnny. Your bandwidth might not be there to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, right? So instead, our tendency is to say, you're going to get through this. You're going to be okay. I remember my own breakup and I got through it. Like, the first one's always the worst. There's more fish in the sea. There's like another Johnny around the corner. Like, there's just something, right? And this is what we often say, and we're trying to be so helpful. Instead, what we could say is we could say something like, I'm seeing that you're crushed and I'm really, really sorry. Like, this is hard. Like, I can't imagine being on quarantine and going through a breakup, right? We don't need to interject our stuff into it. We just need to validate what they're going through. And then we can't ask them for help. We can't say like, well, now that you're, sad, let me know what you need. Like, this was a good talk. Like, come find me if you want to chat again, because to me, that's like a real quick, like, we're done, like, good luck with that. I'm going to go tend to my stuff and I'm going to check in on you every once in a while. And usually check-in's like, oh, how are you doing, sweetie? Oh, okay. All right, bye. That's not enough. We need to really, really check in. We need to share about our first breakup. We need to share about some heartache, like, right? Even if it's not the first breakup, but I'm sure we've all been through one that's like broken us, right? And validate that for our kids so they don't feel so alone. And then the other thing is make some suggestions, like actual tangible suggestions of what to do. Like, I'm going for a walk. Would you like to join me? I was thinking about grabbing this or this for food, two of their like favorite places. Would you want to go? Like, would you go in the car and just ride with me? Or like, I'm feeling really stifled being, let's say, in the city. I was thinking, let's just like drive to a forest preserve. Are you up for that? Right? Just anything. And then if you see something that they pick up on the side, like say they mentioned photography months ago, ask them, like, would now be a time that you'd be interested in that activity again? Would you want to research some cameras with me, and then we can maybe purchase one for you and that you can put together a portfolio during this time? Just anything. Or like ukulele, anything they want to do, you can. They're having lessons online. People are being so giving in all of that I think there's ways that we can help without just putting it kind of on them to solve.
I think that's really important to like validate their feelings, come from not make it about us, right? I like how you explain, like, just don't make it about you, just validate their feelings, be there, share about how you understand the feeling, and then coming up with ideas to distract them for a little bit, like come and get, not saying just like, oh, let me know, but I love the idea of giving them options, and just a few options to like not overwhelm them, but to have, like, you're planting a seed, it sounds like. So I think with that, it really helps me understand of how I can really connect with my kid when it comes to validating feelings. Do you have any other suggestions for parents as we're still trying to homeschool and we're going through anything? Like, what do you think we can do to release the anxiety in the entire household?
Right. So, they say relaxation or activation. Those are the two ways to get rid of anxiety, right? So, and each person might need something different. So that takes a little bit of a learning curve to figure out. But some people are going to need to go and like do some push-ups and do some running around the block or a track or somewhere that you can do. Or if you have a little kid making, like a obstacle course at home, right? And other people might need the relaxation. And in my house, my son goes to sleep every night with Insight Timer, and he does a bedtime meditation. And every night he's like, I just need my bedtime meditation. And so he is my relaxation kid. And then my daughter is my activation kid. She needs to run, swing, jump, something in order to get the anxiety out. And then we have to do that for our kids and then do that for ourselves.
Wow, I think that's really important to understand what we need. Do we need to relax, or do we need to get our bodies moving? Good. So as we're starting to wrap up, is there some additional thoughts, ideas, or strategies that you think that us parents should hear, or not even should hear, but what we would benefit from as we're dealing with our own fears and anxiety?
Sure. So the last couple pieces that come to my mind is this idea of like mercy and grace, and how do you give that to yourself? How do you give it to others? How do you accept it from others, right? Like, so what it looks like is like on the day that you're just really having a bad day and you just really can't do dinner and you order takeout and you just think to yourself, was that a mistake? Was that okay? Am I doing the right thing? Are they eating healthy? Like letting that go and being like, you know what? I'm just getting through today. I'm going to give myself some mercy and grace. Right? Or if you wake up and you're crying and you're sad and you're like, I don't even know why. Just give yourself mercy and grace and be like, it's okay. Like, it's okay to have these days, right? We're seeing like a 3-to-1 ratio, like 3 days good and then 1 day plummet, and like 3 days good and 1 day plummet. Like, this is like the stats I'm getting from a lot of like my clients and my staff. And I don't know exactly what kind of algorithm that follows or why, but it just seems like we can maintain, and then we can, then we hit a little bit of more of a funk. So the last thing I want you to keep in mind is like, if we have a spectrum of 1 to 10 and we label where we're at for that day and say we're like at a 3, and I want my clients living at least this side of the 5, so 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? If we're at a 3, you can't just usually do one coping strategy and expect to be at a 9. And I think that's why people don't do any coping skills, because the number one thing I hear is they don't work. Well, they don't work because you were at a 3 and you took a 10-minute meditation course and that got you to a 4. You may need like another activity of like riding on your bike for a half hour. That might get you to a 5. Then you might need to call a friend. That might get you to a 6. Then you need a shower. That might get you to, do you get what I mean? It's like, and I think so often people just think like, I tried a coping skill and it didn't work. So I'm not going to try anymore. And I really want you to think of it as more of a mathematical equation.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. You know, it's about adding to almost like your bucket versus just trying one thing and being like, that didn't work. I think that's really important for parents to hear. And I wanted, as you were talking, one idea came to mind is, I don't know if you've heard this a lot, but from my standpoint with parents, they're like, I feel like I'm failing at quarantine. What is your advice when you hear that? How can we change our story?
Right. A lot of it is the story we are putting out there. So if we say we're failing at quarantine, the first thing I think of is that then your actions are following that and you're acting as though you're failing. So then it's really hard, if we use that like line item again, it's really hard to be failing and at a 1 and even have motivation to try to get to anything else. So I think it's like acknowledging the thought. So you can say like, oh, I suck at math. I'm going to just get him a math tutor. Like that's much better, right? Because that's within your truths. It's like, this is just not my thing. Like, and I don't have to hold it and beat myself up for it and not get it, right? Like, I think there's this like acceptance and move on kind of piece to it. So I think mercy and grace yourself in the feelings of failure.
That makes total sense. I love how you tied in back the piece of like, what's your truth? And then like, that gives me a really good visual of how to use mercy and grace in those moments. It's when what story am I telling myself and how do I start moving up that scale or that spectrum? So this is incredible. I have so many strategies. I took a ton of notes. So I know that parents are going to love this. I know that teachers are going to love this. Where can we find you?
So my group practice is located in Lincoln Park. You can email us at billing@cfctherapy.com or admin@cfctherapy.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, Yelp, and you can just give us a ring.
Great.
Help. We're also doing discounted sessions. We're helping people without insurance. We are doing whatever we need to be able to meet our community at this time.
Perfect. So if it's okay, I'd love to put that on our YouTube channel, all your information, and so they can reach you with the links, and then we'll just continue sharing this information. For parents and educators, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a blog with all the written out strategies, tie in the links, and then you'll have this amazing video to come back to. So Crystal, I want to thank you so much for joining this. I just loved our time together.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Bye.